Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Rule 34 podcast, Season 2. I'm your host, Jack, joined by my fellow co host,
Dominic Castillo. Yeah.
All right, Dom. How have you been?
I have been fairly normal, nothing really special that's gone on during the week. School has started for the majority of the students. I believe some Cal State students start tomorrow, I think, or this Tuesday, I think. But I would assume the majority of students already started school. Jack and I have began school. School has isn't so bad right now for me. I would assume, as there's nothing been posted up on some of my classes for some odd reason in terms of assignments. So I'm a little worried about that, concerning we already finished the first week technically of school. So I'm gonna have to wait till tomorrow to maybe see if you have any assignments or like reading up to catch up to do. But aside from that, everything at home has been pretty okay. Nothing much has pretty much happened. But yeah. How about you, Jack? How's school? How's life? How's the family, man?
Doing all right. Nothing,
Right.
nothing too much going on. School is still school. I think a couple of my classes have assignments coming up. We're basically in week 4 already.
Right.
Or this week is week 4. So, just trying to handle that stuff. They want us to go in person next week, and I still don't really want to do that. I'm not ready to go in person.
Right.
Especially because it's like, think about it, I've been isolating since the start of this whole thing, and now, all of a sudden you want me to start going back to being in a room with hundreds of people on the daily while this
Right.
virus is still going on.
Interesting. And say, have like students tried to like retaliate against the idea of going back in person? Because I know another fellow UCLA student, Hugh, who you may also know, has noted to me that I believe there was some sort of petition that began, and I think around like 1,200 or 1,500 students have signed up to like try to combat the decision of going back in person. I'm not sure if you heard of that, but do you still think there's a chance with like maybe like a doctor's note or something with some sort of excuse or maybe like an overall student effort that online learning can come back for those who don't have the resources or who can't come on time? What do you think?
I really don't think so, just because of, some of the professors are like more, how would you say, accommodating, but like a majority of them are just like, oh no, let's get back in person, let's get back to normal despite the situation not being normal. One professor even like, just, doesn't have the material prepped for online. He's just like, he prepared like the first few weeks, but then he was like, the rest of it, I'm waiting for in person, and that if they decide to continue online, you'll have to give me time to prep the stuff, But like he's dead. Like a lot of them seem dead set on going in person. So does the school, because apparently, we're just gonna go back, next week because that was the decision they came to, even though everything's still not fine and everyone's just like, hey, we don't want to go in yet. And I don't get why it's so hard to make it hybrid where, hey, for the people who want to come in, and the people who don't, stay online, Like, what's so difficult for a professor to just film their lecture in person,
Right.
Or run a Zoom at the same time?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that most of the professors either don't want to do it, or they do want to do it, or they just don't. They might not feel comfortable per se. But that's just me.
Yeah, overall, I just don't like how it's being handled. I really don't want to go in person, They should really be more understanding that more people don't want to go in person,
Yeah.
But, sadly, that isn't the case,
Right. It do be like that. But I feel like if you have some sort of excuse, like let's say you have indeed contracted COVID, or you have some sort of disability, or you know of any type, or you just simply can't go in person because time doesn't allow it. I feel like you could somehow be able to try to on an individual basis to be able to stay home. You know,
Well, here's
but
the way I
but
look at it.
considering each class, my bad. Yeah, continue, my bad.
Sorry, sorry, but here's the way I look at it to like really, real quickly counteract your point. You would think medical excuses and all that, would, they would accommodate. But let's not forget last quarter when I literally could not walk, and yet none of the in-person classes were willing to accommodate. Instead, they kept trying to make it seem like, oh, you can find a way to come in person, there's enough space for you, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I can't walk, you know? It
Right.
wasn't oh, I'm on crutches, oh, I'm in a wheelchair. It was literally, I couldn't walk and I was bedridden for like the entirety of that quarter.
Oh yeah.
And none of them were willing to make accommodations, so I had to switch and real quickly at the end of that find, courses that offered everything online, section, discussion section, lectures,
Yeah.
And the thing I find dumb is a majority of the assignments end up online anyways, There's no such thing as in-person exams for the most part anymore. A lot of them it's like, oh, go, here's the take-home exam on this website, oh, it's a take-home, like, essay that you have to write, The only things that are usually ever in person are the finals, but so it's like, why is it that they can't accommodate and just, they're putting most of their material online anyway, so what's the deal? Why not just stick with online for the time being?
True. Yeah, you got a point.
And if the argument is, oh, we've been online for too long, it's like, well, why do you think we're online for so long? People aren't thinking right, with this whole situation.
Right. I feel like it mostly also goes on the other side of the students who just simply don't care and they just want to go back in person, just go back to that in school feeling per se, which I think alters the decisions that are made by the professors and possibly the dean of UCLA. But yeah, I think at this point I feel like they're just going to be kept on being pushed by the other side of the students who want to go back in person.
Which is why I say, why not make a compromise and create hybrid courses? Either provide a plethora of courses, either hire more professors essentially, and create a plethora of courses so that, some of the same subjects that people are going to need for their majors, especially a lot of the general eds that fulfill a lot of requirements. Find a way to make a lot of those courses available online and split them, Hey, for those of you who want online, here it is. For those of you who want in person, here it is. Or the professors should find a way to make it hybrid where, hey, the option for you to come in is available, but if you just want to stay online, here's the link to the Zoom, here's the link to the class website and all the course material, that you're going to need, all the assignments online, Here it is. Especially because it's like, oh, the one thing was like, oh, online schooling, attendance is going to drop. That's why you give them the Zoom link and say that attendance matters, The moment you say, oh, attendance doesn't matter, or, oh, one thing the professors will do is they'll say they don't record the lectures because that just adds more incentive for people to not show up. Oh, they're recording it, I can just watch it later,
Right.
But that's why you say attendance matters. Like literally last Friday I had a lab for one of my classes, right? And, in the lab, you're supposed to be paired up with students, and you just essentially help each other, finish the lab, The lab isn't due until the week after, so you just kind of help each other to either finish it then or, like, finish enough of it, and then later on, you do whatever on your own. But, one guy in my group was like, is all this class literally just us going to be sitting here doing the lab? And he was like, oh, this is stupid, I'm leaving. And he just left.
What?
Yeah, and he left. And it was like, attendance really wasn't graded. It's not like, you know, it really mattered. I had another course like that too, where they were like, attendance for the lab, you just show up for the first 5 minutes, and then if you want to leave and do the lab on your own, go ahead. So it's like, when you have mindsets like that, of course you're gonna be like, oh well, we can't do online school because they won't show up. But like, if you enforce it, and really make it matter, then of course, more people are gonna stay.
Right.
And if those are the type of people that they don't want to show up online because they feel it's a waste of time, then hey, give them the option to go in person, and if they feel it'll be a better, you know, usage of their time.
Right. Right. Oh dear. Yeah, you got a point about that, man. I just feel like there's just gonna be a big conflict between the students who want to go back in person and all that stuff, especially about in terms of attendance. But I just don't think we're ever gonna reach a clear basis of agreement between all the students and teachers.
Yeah.
But what I don't understand is why the schools don't because I would assume that it's expensive to run the facilities, right? Have the lights on, facilities, all that stuff. But why wouldn't it be more expensive to do that instead of just having everyone at home, safe, considered technically quarantine for everyone, and having the ease of access of just accessing your computer.
Yeah.
I mean, because still the COVID still has not been lifted yet. We still have the Omicron variant, ravaging down San Francisco. For the time being, that is. I mean, sure, it's not as infectious, but it's still infectious regardless.
Well, no, it's not as
Or is it
impactful.
Not
Like it's not really as damaging, if you want to say, as the original, but
right.
It's more infectious in the fact that it spreads more quickly.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's even worse.
Yeah, so it's like you're getting more people infected, and stuff, and it's just like, and at the end of the day, this all falls on our government. Our government has done a terrible job of handling this since the moment it happened.
Agreed.
Because we have too many people who think that too many things are a violation of their human rights, but then you start asking them, and they can't even name you what human right of theirs is being violated.
Right. Yeah. So what?
No, I was saying, it's like, again, it's a thing of conflict and all that, but none, like, our government handled it terribly. We have all the different views in the U.S. that are making it terrible.
Yeah.
But because it's like when this whole thing started, there was the people who, I don't want to wear a mask and all this, and even though like scientists were proving a lot of their claims wrong, they were still making all these false narratives. Then you had the people who, I get it, you can rightfully be scared of a vaccine maybe, but like, there was people coming up again with false narratives, and it's like, our government never did an effective job,
Right.
They never, they never insured the public, and, instead they kind of essentially brought more fear to the public, instead of easing, their nerves and affirming them, They didn't do anything when it came to quarantining and distancing,
Yeah.
And then finally, when it's got into its breaking point of just how much it spreads and how much it kills, it's like they don't want to do anything now,
Yeah.
It's like, it's like we need some type of leadership, and there's literally no leadership being done for this situation,
Yeah.
Obviously, it would be difficult, but like, we should have gone into full-on lockdown at some point or the other,
Yeah.
If people, there should have been a creation of service for delivering, essential needs, or if you think that's too hard, then, every household should just have been able to designate who was the one person that was gonna go out to get the stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know, man. It's like our government just handled it completely terribly, and now we're like heading into the third year of this, you know. We're finishing up the full 2 years of COVID, you know.
Yeah.
And it's just like we're heading into the third year, and people are keep wanting to talk about going back to normal, and it's like we can't even get back to normal because our government from the start never just did anything to help. And now it's like you have places like the school system where just like, oh well, let's return to normal, you know, and ignore the fact that, you know, nothing is normal about it, you know.
Yeah. Man, I think this all falls into really bad timing and ignorance too, but like really bad timing. Because like when the spark of the outbreak came out back in like the start of 2020, weren't we all like focusing on World War III during that time? If you remember.
Oh yeah, the memes.
Oh man, those were yeah. I remember that, but I remember I kept on seeing news about like this crazy the newly discovered COVID-19 crazy. At the time, I was thinking that, hey, I feel like this might be something really bad because, you know, if it just sparks out of nowhere and it's rapidly spreading,
And sorry to
the rest of the
interrupt.
world should, work with it. My bad. Keep on. Yeah.
And sorry to interrupt, but like the crazy part is, it came out during December 2019. Remember?
Yeah.
And so there was a chance that people got sick with it in the winter, you know, December, January 2020, February 2020, and people just thought, oh, it's like the flu or something, you know?
Yeah.
Or people, you know, and people were still traveling around that time, and it wasn't until March 2020 that things fully shut down.
Yeah, true that.
You know, and
It
even
took,
then,
like, 3-4
oh yeah, sorry, but like, you know, even then, can you say things shut down when places were still open and people were still going out, you know? And the only thing we knew was, hey, just wear a mask.
True. And not only that, but there's also the ignorant people who don't wear masks at all, go walk outside, and it's even worse when they're asymptomatic with the virus, so they don't show any symptoms, they don't show any any form of sickness, and yet they're still spreading it around.
Yeah.
And that just makes things worse for everyone, especially those who are vulnerable, like the elderly or younger children. Before we had any vaccines involved, but I think the overall problem with all our major conflicts that have happened from like 2019 and at this point was, I think, just ignorance, right? And bad
Ignorance and
tactics,
selfishness.
also, and selfish reasons as well. Whether it be financial or just out of pure laziness of trying to implement new procedures to try to help the civilians survive at least, and it creates a bad consensus of our government, our people, and some as well as the people's accountability to hold themselves sometimes. We have the people who don't want to follow procedures, who makes things worse for everyone else. They don't wear masks. They go outside regardless of what they're told, and and they complain about it. And they complain about not following the rules that are implemented to try to help the people who are vulnerable.
Yeah,
it makes us look bad. It makes us look like clowns to the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's like they complain that, oh, why do I have to be wearing a mask or vaccinated in order to do this and this? And it's like, hey, guess what? Since our government's not doing anything about it, these privately owned businesses are allowed to do what they want. And if they say that you can't come in, you can't shop here, you can't buy here, whatever, unless you're vaccinated or wearing a mask, then that's that. That's their rules. They're allowed to do that. There's a reason why so many places have that signed, we hold the right to refuse service to anyone,
Yeah.
You want to talk about rights, they have the right to do that, and it's not a violation on anyone's rights. And And then, going back to the school thing, I don't know, maybe you might feel similar, but do you think a lot of people who are going, who want to go back like in person, obviously it doesn't apply to like the people from beforehand, like the people who are now essentially, uh I guess you could say like juniors and seniors in like college, and I guess high school, where it's like they knew what it was like to be in person, or like
Yeah.
for the people at college, they knew what it was like, what college was like in person. But think about like the people who were barely going in and never got like the in-person experience of college. Do you think a couple of them maybe, I don't mean this in a mean way, could be blinded by like nostalgia in a way, or like their own thinking of like what they assume college will be like, like they'll assume it will be like high school, and so it's like they want to go back in person because they think it's gonna be like that, when in reality maybe it's not so much, you know
Yeah, you definitely have a point there. It's like they're trying to create memories that never existed per se.
yeah, like
Or like they want it. Like they see this. Wait, my bad, my bad. But they're trying to create this. There's an illusion that's going on that they think that, or they might not think. I don't know. But they think that going into that in person college experience is going to be like this smooth transition to a better or a new life per se. When sometimes it's not always that way. But that's what I think. What do you think?
yeah, like one example I'll give you, obviously, like it's very simple. Like let's say like for example, someone like me, obviously I know college is gonna be different, but let's say someone like me, who a kid who's going to a college, none of their friends are, they have no friends there, they don't know nobody there, right? But
Right.
they've never experienced in person college, and so they're thinking, oh, maybe it'll be similar like high school, where I was hanging around with all these people I knew. In class, you would sit there for a bit and listen to the teacher give their lesson, but then you would maybe turn and start working with a group, and they
Right.
think
Right.
it's like that. So they're like, oh, come on, let's go back in person. But then, again, since they never had the experience of an in-person class, and, who knows, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about because I never got an in-person college class. But, well, imagine it's like, oh, they show up for in-person and it's like, they get that shock that it's not high school, it's, hey, you sit there for and an hour or longer and listen to a lecture and that's it. And then you leave the class and go do whatever work you have. And the only time you really work with a group is like for the short hour discussion section,
Yeah.
and that's it. And then it's like, you know, the only way to make friends is to like go up to people in your class or, during those discussion sections.
Yeah. True.
So again, it's like they have like a false narrative in their mind of what it's gonna be like.
You got a point there. It's like those hard lessons that you learn as soon as you experience it.
Yeah.
But apart from that, yeah, but you do have a true point that they create a bit of a false narrative of how they think going into college will feel like. But it's it's kind of like attending to a new job that you applied for. Like you think it's gonna be wow so crazy, but if it's like a 9 to 5 per se, every day is gonna feel like the same, or it's gonna feel worse because it's not the best places of the world per se, right? You're gonna learn things and stuff like that, but there's gonna be those times where you're gonna feel down in the dumps per se,
Yeah, I
and it's
got
not
you.
gonna be the best of experiences. Some people are gonna feel like stressed out, depression maybe. They're gonna have to attend to doing multiple things at the same time, like the studies, and maybe having to manage relationships with their friends or family, or personal like close relatives or loved ones. And it's even worse for those who are like renting apartments because now they gotta work on the sideline if they don't have any scholarships to cover that, and that's not always displayed to all the students applying for school, especially college.
Yeah.
And it only gets worse from there. as grades start piling up. If they're bad grades, that's bad. If they're good grades, then I guess that's good. But that only means that they're just pushing themselves even more, which might even stress them out even more if they're not looking out for their own mental health.
Yeah. Very stressful times we are in.
Indeed so. Indeed so. And I also wanted to add just one more thing in that I only personally just want to go back in person only because, but not in college, only because obviously of what we just said, but just because I want to just do the grad night thing for high school again, only because I never got to try that out. I want to try it out. I never got to try it out. But that's just me. That's the end of my argument.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the human desire to just, simply see people again, go back to a point of normalcy, but it's crazy to think that when this all started, there was people who were saying, oh, it's only going to last like a couple months, maybe a year, and here we are heading into year 3.
Cool. Have you seen that one TikTok? It was like, I think it was like some woman, and it was like, oh, I'm a psychic, right? And it was like, oh yeah, I'm a psychic, and the COVID is gonna end in June, and we're gonna go back in August or something like that. And yeah, here we are entering the third year.
Yeah.
Or believing that that this was all gonna last like 2 to 3 weeks, and so we get to have like spring break,
Yeah.
like early, and we were all like happy, going home. We could just stay home for a bit, play some games. But here we are, still after 2 years, not 2 weeks, 2 years. It's kind of scary to think,
Yeah.
I don't think my past self would have believed my present self if I were to tell my past self, yeah, this is not 2 weeks, homie.
Yeah.
It's 2 years.
When COVID first started, technically it started, as we said, December 2019 was when news was first breaking out about it.
Yeah.
So when this COVID thing first all started, we were both 17. When lockdown happened for the first time in March 2020, you were still 17, obviously, but I was 18. My birthday's in January. And now look, I'm 20, you're 19.
That's crazy.
That's how much time has passed within this COVID thing that, I'm 20 years old already and you're going to turn 20 later this year too.
That's a scary thought. Jeez. Man.
Crazy times we're living in, mate.
It indeed is. I mean, it is what it is at the end of the day,
Not much
we
you can
suffer
do.
the consequences to those who don't pay attention. And now here we are.
And like I've always said, I'm willing to, ride this out as long as possible if it means keeping, certain people safe, those that are at higher risk, the elderly, the young children, I'm willing to do as much as I can to help those people, I'm not going to be selfish and say that I don't like wearing a mask because, oh, it inhibits my breathing or whatever, oh, it goes against my human rights, whatever, No, I'll gladly wear a mask, I'll gladly social distance, I'll gladly isolate if I have to, if it means keeping those people safe, because I'm not selfish and I'm actually considering the lives of others.
Agreed.
I'm not caring just about my own safety and health.
True that. Do you think that we missed out on a lot?
Oh, most definitely.
Like, in terms of creating memories, like maybe making new friends or finding out new hobbies we never know we liked, but we would somehow discover it in college, or new talents per se. I don't know. I feel like we missed out on a lot of memories we could have possibly made, and it kind of sucks to think about it, Or we're still technically in this. I kind of feel like sometimes we're still in high school, Nothing pretty much literally nothing has technically practically changed ever since that day in March when we all went, or I think it was March when we all went home for the 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're still on the computer. I mean, sure, obviously the little events have occurred. We're in college now, but we're still taking classes online, which is absolutely fine by me. But and I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, most definitely we missed out on a lot of things, Obviously, we missed out on our own graduation. Weren't able to get much done. Weren't able to celebrate much.
Right.
Didn't get to celebrate with the people we wanted to. Um, missed the experience of stepping on campus for the first time. Missed out on a ton of things. And that's not to leave out, big things like certain movie releases and what it would have been like in theaters for them. Uh,
True.
I can tell you in the wrestling world, a lot of events, missed out, and a lot of the events didn't hold the same type of energy that it would have had with a crowd.
Right.
We've seen the video game world be hit by this, where they're not able to work as much on the games, like for Smash Ultimate, it was very difficult for them because they couldn't they obviously it was like they would work on like the DLC character or fixing the game, but it was like they couldn't do much when at any given point they were either allowed in the office or they weren't.
Yeah.
And I guess the same thing with other game companies, like there was a limited amount of people who could be in those buildings working on developing the stuff. And so it's like a lot of games really suffered in the end because of like not having the full experience of having everyone there.
True. Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree. There was definitely a lot of stuff that was just truly missed out upon, during this time. And you can only really blame, yourself, as in like we can only really blame ourselves, as in like as a whole, just not handling this better than we could have.
Right.
And I feel like it's gonna be the same thing, with school. It's the one reason I don't want to go on campus, because it's like I already know, there's people out here lying about having COVID, lying about their testing, lying about their vaccines. And people are like, oh, how can you lie about it? So in the NFL, certain players got away with lying about their vaccination status just so that they could play.
Really?
Yeah, like it was a big controversy with the Buccaneers that a couple of their players, they got fined and suspended a couple games because they found out that they were lying about their vaccination status. And it wasn't that they needed to be vaccinated, it was just that, they lied to the league about it.
Right.
They claimed they were vaccinated when in reality they weren't, and they had like these forged COVID cards and stuff like that. And I think you've seen that like viral image of like a lady that was like on a plane, and like the person who took a picture, if you zoomed in onto the like old lady's phone, you see her texting someone saying, "Oh, don't tell anyone, but we have COVID," and we're on our first flight back home.
Jeez, man.
It's like, yeah, people like that lying about their status. And obviously the schools will say, "Oh, that's why we're testing so often," and they have to report their tests to us. First off,
Yeah.
Especially with these take-at-home tests, who's to say that they can't lie about it?
Cool.
Who's to say they don't have somebody else take their test for them?
Not wrong. You're not wrong.
And not only that, even if you test 2 times a week, there's still a period of time where, you'll never know. It's like, I was telling my dad, I'm like, what if I go in, I test on a Monday, negative, and so I go to school, fine, and then like on Wednesday, Thursday, I test and I find out I'm positive. Well, how long was I positive for, and who could I have potentially infected?
Right.
There's the flaw in their system, in that, it's going to happen to so many people, and they're going to realize how terrible it is sending people in person, because, if these professors aren't going to be doing their lectures online, that's so many classes that these people are going to have to miss when out with COVID, and then, if multiple students get infected, what are these professors going to do when, half their class is out because they got COVID? Because they unknowingly interacted with someone who was positive, and the person didn't know they were positive, because let's say they didn't have the symptoms, they didn't know they were positive until they took that second test later in the week.
Right.
you know? So it's just like, and like, it's like I tell my dad, it's like, I don't want to go because think about it. I've been isolating all 2 years of COVID, and I've been fine, haven't got it once. I know the moment I step on that campus, I'm going to get it because, hello, I'm going to be in classrooms with over hundreds of people. How do you socially distance hundreds of people? You know? This isn't high school anymore where, the classes are limited to only like 30 people a room. It's like there's going to be 50 plus to like 100 plus people in a class.
Right.
There's no way to safely social distance that and prevent people from getting sick. And don't forget, it's not just 100 people in those classes. Each one of those people interacts with people on the daily.
Right.
It doesn't matter what the school says. I guarantee you, a ton of those people, they're still going to go hang out with their friends at spot, hang out in large groups. And it doesn't help that the schools are still opening up their different, recreation centers and all this. And all they're saying is, oh, you have to wear a mask while in them. It's like, that's not going to do anything when you still have all these huge groups of people hanging around.
True.
It's just like, it just doesn't make sense to why they're doing any of this.
I don't think anything makes sense at this point, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess we just gotta keep moving on, trudging through. Because at this point, we can't really change anyone unless we force them. But nothing else can really be done.
Yeah.
Unless we try to like educate, but that doesn't always work.
Yeah, I get you.
But I mean, oh brother, I mean, I think moving on from this point forward, I think we just gotta watch out for ourselves, and in doing so, we'll watch out for others, and that should be okay, right? No, I don't know. At this point, I'm losing hope a little bit.
Yeah, it's like, it's very tough because it's like, like I said, there's just the basic human desire to want to see the people you love.
Right.
And, this thing is preventing that, it's like someone said, because of how terribly they've handled this, and how long they've allowed it to go on, we're reaching a point where just people aren't going to care anymore, because they've gone too long.
Right.
It's been so long since people, for those of us who have been doing this properly, and isolating, and, those of us who, have been blessed to, remain home, whether it's like they work a job where they can remain home, or if they work a job, they still do a careful job of isolating and, holding out, Hold on. Alright, so, like I was saying, it's like we're getting to this point where, they've gone so long that, they're not going to start caring at this point, where it's just like, I'm sorry I waited too long. And I think what I was saying before, sorry, we have to pause real quick, that, what's it called, thankfully, the people who have, if they've had their jobs where they still have to go in person, we have people who, are smart and, careful and stuff and, do everything, they sanitize their things, they make sure they're not potentially spreading, this virus,
Right.
And you also have the people who, they make the sacrifice of not going out, they maybe go out to get the groceries, obviously, and the essentials, but, they're not going out to hang out with their friends and family, they're not going out and, going to, like, the things that we used to do, and, like, the other thing itself is, like, it's gone on for so long that at some point we're just going to have these people that, you can't even look at them as being selfish because, again, it's just a natural human desire. It's like they're going to be like, this has gone on for too long, I just want to see the people I love the most,
Yeah.
And you can't blame them for being selfish because at that point, it's just very simply, their mental health is starting to get to them,
Yeah.
It's like, these people, it's like, at that point, it's going to be like, I'm sorry, but, as you mentioned, things such as like depression and stuff are just gonna get to them where it's like, I'm sorry, but I've just gone too long without seeing these people.
Yeah.
I just simply want to see them, and be in their company and all that. And it's just like, at that point you can't even fault them because it's like I'm saying, it's like it's been it's just at that point gonna be too much for them, where
Yeah, I agree.
it's just gonna be like I just need to see them, I need to see these people, you know, like, cause I can tell you for like me example, it's just like it's been real tough not being able to see friends, going from, you know, the high school life where you were seeing these people on a daily basis, to now not ever seeing them. And, as much as, we try, it's like, I think even you can agree that, you know, gaming and like, doing video calls and all that, it's like, it's not the same, it's like, it's the same argument that the professors make, where they're like, oh, in person schooling is different, it's not the same as being online and all that,
Yeah.
It's the same argument there where people are just going to tell you, simply put, it's like talking with them over the phone is not the same as seeing them in person.
True.
Well, it's just something that we're going to have to wait and see how it all plays out,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
It's like, nothing much more we can do but just sit here and wait and see how all these things play out.
Yeah, but I mean, as long as we keep ourselves mentally in check, we can get through this. Maybe a year more, but we can still get through it. Not sure how, but I mean, we've gone already 2 years. I mean, I guess we could shoot for another.
Yeah, or like, just hope that people get this stuff under control.
Yeah.
One way or another, we gotta find a way to just get it under control and get it to a point where it feels like, normal in a sense.
Yeah, agreed. Man,
Very simply, though, just have to wait and see, sadly. It's the only thing we can do.
true that.
But, any final thoughts, though?
I just think that we just have to stay put and simply just follow the same routine just one more time. I mean, it's gonna be a little bit longer, but I mean, just one more time. Stay inside. If you're gonna go outside, wear a mask. Maybe, I mean, for me personally, I would always go double or triple mask.
Yeah, I do double masks too.
Agreed. Double masking or triple masking. I always triple mask when I'm at work because you never know when there's gonna be that one client who doesn't wear their mask, where we just is asymptomatic, who just simply doesn't care. Take care of the loved ones. Please. Everyone's human at the end of the day, right? Everyone's got their needs, but everyone also has their vulnerabilities. And not everyone is safe from COVID. Not everyone is 100% protected. So it's always safe to stay sure that everyone's on mentally in check, mentally prepared, and also through vaccines, obviously prepared through that as well. You gotta keep that immune system in check.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we could survive one way, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, just have to casually wait and see, what awaits all of us. But with that being said, I've been your host, Jack, joined by my fellow co-host,
Dominic, to see you.
Thank you all for joining us for another episode of Season 2 of the Rule 34 podcast. And as always, if it exists, we have an opinion on it. Thank you, stay safe, and we'll see you all in the next episode.